Hello! Today I am here to bring you my February wrap-up. It was a weird reading month for me. There were some books that I felt took me quite a long time, but I actually got through quite a lot of books in the end, so let's just get straight into it. Firstly, I read this on my Kindle, not on this copy, but I have a copy, so I'm holding it up. And I read it throughout the months of January and February, but I did finish it in February, so I thought I'd include it here. Ignore the battered copy. It's very old, has been chewed by quite a few dogs of my life, and yeah. Never mind. But I have done a full review of this, which I will link down below if you want to know my more detailed thoughts on it. For those of you who don't know, this is basically about a man called Dorian Gray, who he has his picture painted when he's quite young, and from that point on, anything bad he does or his aging process in general is on the painting. He stays young and youthful and fresh looking and innocent looking, and all these terrible things that he starts doing reflect badly on the portrait, which he hides away, and it's basically just about that and how he hides the portrait and the bad things he does do. And it was okay. I enjoyed the writing. I do love Oscar Wilde, but I did have my problems with it. I thought it was quite lacking in characterization and a lot of things. I will link my review of this down below as I say, if you want to know more, go and check that out. Then I read John Irving's In One Person. I read this because I actually went to see John Irving out of the month, and he was fantastic. He was talking about his new book, and he's such a performance man, and he was just excellent. If you get a chance to go and see him, I definitely recommend it. In terms of this book, I loved it. It is about William Abbott. He is at university and he is bisexual. He is having trouble coming to terms with this. He's also attracted to transsexuals. It's basically just about acceptance and about the fact that there is still, I mean, this was written when he was a teenager. I think it's him looking back at his life as a teenager, but when he is a teenager, I think it's in the 60s. It's around the time that AIDS became a thing, which is also an aspect that is covered in this, when AIDS started killing a lot of gay people, and it was quite harrowing to read about, and I didn't know that much about that time. It's not something I've particularly heard about before, and that was really interesting, and it was really upsetting. And it's just a fascinating book about acceptance and about the fact that there is still issues with acceptance now. Even though things have come a lot further, there is still a lot of issues, especially in certain societies, and it's just a really touching, personal look at it, and I think it was excellent, and I would definitely recommend this to anybody. Then I read Skim by Mariko and Tamaki. I've done a full review of this one as well, which I will link down below. This is fantastic. At first I thought I didn't like it, but actually once I got into it, it was very good. Again, this is about sort of the same kind of themes as In One Person, to be honest. It's about a teenage girl, and she's sort of coming to terms with who she is sexually and otherwise, and it follows her sort of school journey after a boy at the school has committed suicide, and sort of that is going around the school, and the teachers are on high alert at the moment, and it follows this girl called Kim, or Skim, and it's just a very interesting look at first love, really, and falling in love with people, and falling in love particularly with the wrong person. If you want to know more, again, review linked down below. Then I read Monsters of Men by Patrick Ness. This is the last in the Chaos Walking trilogy. Finally, I have finished them. I have to say, I did enjoy this. I really don't like YA fiction anymore. Certainly, from the time that I started the series to now, I have completely gone off YA. But I still enjoyed it for what it was. It's very interesting. It's in a very interesting series, and for a YA series, it's very well written and very well done. This, basically, I won't tell you much about this book because I don't want to spoil anything, but the first book, The Knife of Never Letting Go, it's about a world where all women are gone, as far as we're aware, and men can hear each other's noise. So any thoughts that they have, they can hear each other, and it's sort of, everybody knows everything, there's no secrets, and that's just how the world is. All the women, as I say, have gone. But stuff happens when our main character, Todd, finds a piece of silence, which is everywhere else is really loud and constantly you can hear people. Todd finds one day a space of silence, and things ensue from there. This was quite good. I didn't get the feeling that I sometimes get with the finales of series, where, certainly in YA series, where everything comes together quite neatly and suddenly. I didn't get that with this. It was better than I was expecting. It's quite thick. And yeah, I did enjoy it. Although I did feel a little like it was a lot, trying to get the pace going and a lot going on at once, and I didn't necessarily feel that it needed that. I kind of felt that because we switched between 3 points of view in this book, and they sort of have very brief sections for each of them, and I understand why he did that, to try and get the momentum and the going, but I felt as though it could have done without. But that's the only criticism I really had of it. Oh, my library pick, before I forget, because that's what I read next, was Zoe Heller's The Believers. I will put a picture someplace. I had to give this back before I got to do a review, because I got ill and I couldn't do a review before I had to go back to the library. Zoe Heller is the author of Notes on a Scandal, so I've been quite interested to pick up her other stuff, and when I saw it at the library I picked it up straight away. Disappointed with it, to be honest. It was, because Notes on a Scandal, the writing is very unique, literary, different, and The Believers was just quite stereotypical. It follows a family after, I'm not going to be able to remember anybody's names because I haven't got the book here to look, but basically the father of the family he has a stroke, he's in a coma, and it deals with sort of the children of the family and also the wife. The wife, frankly, was horrible. I didn't like her at all. She was really quite unpleasant. And though I liked the fact that, like, she put her kids down a lot, and I think it was quite an interesting look at motherhood in there, she was just sometimes unpleasant to the point of unnecessary. It was just, there was no purpose and you just didn't like her. I certainly liked the way she spoke to the doctors. Just came across as one of those people who just likes to make other people miserable, and there's no explanation or purpose behind her actions. She was just nasty. The kids were quite interesting. There was 2 daughters, one of whom was working as a sort of social worker, and she was also getting interested in the Jewish culture because the family is originally Jewish, not that any of them were practicing Jews, and they seemed to have a massive problem with her Judaism, and just they were really unpleasant about the fact that she was becoming a Jew. The whole family were just casting her off, basically, and saying she was being ridiculous. I also had some problems with the way that the Jewish culture was portrayed in the book. Almost there was, I felt a little as though it was Zoe Heller trying to educate people, but failing, to be honest. That I had a problem with. And the other daughter, she works as a social worker in a hospital, and she is struggling in her marriage, struggling in terms of obviously everything with her father, and she gets mixed up with another man. But generally it was just pretty much as weak as it sounds, but it was just pretty poor. Certainly, if I hadn't read anything by Zoe Heller before, I wouldn't have liked it, but I would have thought it was mediocre, forgettable. But because I have read Notes on a Scandal, I was really disappointed. I wouldn't recommend picking it up. I'm sorry. Then I read This Isn't the Sort of Thing That Happens to Someone Like You by John McGregor. This was my short story pick for the month. As you can see, I did really enjoy some of the stories, but sadly I read this when I was really ill and I was quite feverish. And you know, when you say, like, when you watch a film or eat a certain food a lot when you're ill, you sort of have bad feelings about it when you look back on it. That's kind of what I feel with this book, because literally for 2 days I just laid in bed and read this book, basically. I really did enjoy it, and I want to reread it at some point, and certainly reread the stories that I've highlighted, because obviously I enjoyed them. There were some very unique stories in here, and obviously John McGregor just has my heart. But I'm quite sad that I read this when I was really poorly, because bad feelings inside. Right, then my reread for the month was Looking for JJ by Anne Cassidy. I read this when I was about 13 and I loved it, so I've been wanting to sort of reread it ever since, and I have to say I still loved it now. This is about a girl. She has committed a murder when she was very young, I think 10. That's not ruining anything. It does say it on the back, even though they do try and build a bit of a suspense mystery situation in the first chapter. But it does say it on the back, because obviously that's the main selling point of the story. So she has committed a murder. She had just come out of prison for said murder, or juvie, or wherever she went. And she is now 17. And she has been sort of, with witness protection, placed in a new setting, given a new name, etc., etc. She's called Alice. Yes, Alice Tully. And It's basically about her life, and obviously people are looking for her and sort of her trying to evade being discovered and the struggles that she has, and sort of the middle section of the book is about what happened all those years ago, how she ended up committing a murder. It doesn't necessarily go into the motives of said murder or how it made her feel particularly, but it is good and it's worth a read, and I think it's a good look at sort of, can a person change and can a person have a new start in life. It's worth a read, definitely. If you haven't read it before, I would pick it up. Then I have a second library book for the month, which was a nice surprise. Is another graphic novel as well, Nimona by Noelle Stevenson. My library is awful for graphic novels. I've never seen a graphic novel in there that I have recognised even. But this was on the front shelf when I went in and I grabbed it. A lot of people have been talking about this. It hasn't necessarily appealed to me because it's a bit more... I like sort of the harrowing kind of graphic novel. This is a bit more sort of fun, kind of action-filled graphic novel. There's a bit of the graphics there. But I picked it up because I've heard only good things about it and I actually really enjoyed it. It's not my normal kind of thing, but it was really fun and a nice break, really. This is about Nimona. She goes to help the bad guy of this planet that they're in, this universe, alternate place, and she wants to be his sidekick, but it turns out she can sort of shapeshift and things like this, and it's just about them sort of trying to overcome the good guys, who of course actually end up being the bad guys, and it's about her and the bad guys, about their relationship, and sort of, she's a really cute character, and it's about the fact that she sort of breaks through the ice of this black heart and gives him a friendship almost, and it's really touching, and I really did enjoy it. Then I read Into the Wild by John Krakauer. This is a film that I have watched a lot of times and really enjoyed. I bought the book before I bought the film, but I never got to the book because it was much more non-fiction-y than I expected. Normally I don't really read non-fiction. The most non-fiction I read is sort of memoirs and biographies. This was quite heavy non-fiction for me, but I still enjoyed it, I think, especially because I know the film and I know the story. Basically, this is about Chris McCandless. He, in the 1990s, left everything he knew, burnt all his money after he graduated from university, also gave a lot of it away to charity, and just went on the road basically. And he was on the road for a few years, and his ultimate goal was to go to Alaska. He went to Alaska eventually and found a camper van type bus to stay in, and he did tragically die in that camper van bus. This story looks at what he did. Also, it looks at other people who have done the same and completely cast off society. And it questions a very interesting thing of, did Chris McCandless do a bad thing, or was it admirable what he did? Because watching the film even, it's quite confusing. You don't know whether you respect what he's done because he's so free and so happy. But obviously at the end, when he dies alone and scared, we can only guess from sort of diary entries and things that he has left that he was frightened, and sort of looks at also the effect that what he did had on his family, because he didn't tell his family what was going to happen. He just left and never contacted them again, and it looks at the effect that had on his family. Very interesting. It's not the longest, and I would definitely recommend it, certainly if you like the film. Then finally, I read my first Murakami, Norwegian Wood. Loved this. I might do a separate review on it, I'm not sure. The writing in this was just so on point. It was phenomenal. I definitely am going to enjoy Murakami. I know I am. This is basically a bit Catcher in the Rye-esque, but I don't like Catcher in the Rye, so I don't like to say that. What's our man called? It follows Toru Watanabe in his college days, and it looks at, well, it's him looking back at his college days and a relationship he had during that time. It's basically, you know, first love and confusion, and a lot of suicide happens, and just, you know, general sadness and looking deeply at life, and it just did it for me. I really enjoyed it. One thing I have heard said about this is that the women in it are not represented very well. I've heard that that's a thing for a lot of Murakami books. For me, yes, the women were hysterical and strange, and, you know, there was a certain conversation about periods that probably didn't go down too well with a lot of people. But for me, because Toru Watanabe is 19 when this is set, like when he's looking at his feelings, I feel like it worked. It fit with the view of women that a 19-year-old boy would have. I didn't feel it was jarring or out of context. It was almost like it was very much written by the perspective of a man who doesn't understand women, which for me completely worked, because a 19-year-old wouldn't understand women, and also there was bits in this about women not understanding men. So I don't know, it wasn't a thing that I thought was an issue, but maybe I've heard it's a recurring thing in Murakami's work, so maybe it will become an issue. But for me, I really wouldn't say that it's enough to put you off this book. I would definitely recommend it if you haven't read it already. That was a long one. I hope you've all had good reading months as well. Bye!